The stars above Earth were disappearing. Not because of clouds or darkness, but because alien warships blocked them out. 300 massive ships hung in space like dark metal vultures, waiting to feast on humanity's last hope. Commander Taiho stood on the bridge of the flagship Indomitable, watching his screens fill with red warning lights. Each light represented a Krillian enemy ship. Each ship carried enough firepower to destroy a city. He had only 12 ships left to defend Earth, 12 against 300. The math was simple and cruel. "Commander, Station Omega is reporting heavy damage," Lieutenant Yuna said from her console. Her voice was steady, but Taiho could hear the fear underneath. She was young, barely 30, but she had seen more death in the past 3 weeks than most soldiers saw in a lifetime. "They're asking for support." Taiho clenched his jaw. Station Omega was Earth's last orbital defense platform. If it fell, nothing would stop the aliens from attacking the planet directly. But he had no ships to send. Every vessel was already fighting for its life. "Tell them to hold on," he said. It was a hollow command. They both knew Station Omega was dying. The Krillians had appeared 6 months ago at the edge of the solar system. At first, Earth's governments thought they might be peaceful explorers. That hope died quickly. The aliens sent one message: surrender or die. Then they started shooting. Humanity fought back with everything they had. Nuclear missiles, railguns, plasma cannons. Every weapon developed over centuries of military research. It wasn't enough. The Krillian shields absorbed most attacks, and their weapons tore through Earth's ships like paper. World after world had fallen to these invaders. Now it was Earth's turn. Down on the planet's surface, Dr. Hana stood in the Sol Command Center, surrounded by screens showing the battle above. She was a scientist, not a soldier, but war had made warriors of everyone. Her job was to coordinate the evacuation of major cities. Millions of people were hiding in underground shelters, praying for a miracle. "How long do we have?" asked one of her assistants, a young man with fear in his eyes. Hana checked her data. The Krillian flagship was charging its main weapon, a massive cannon designed to destroy entire planets. The energy readings were climbing steadily. Maybe an hour, maybe less. The young man's face went pale. An hour, 60 minutes until Earth became a dead rock floating in space. Hana wanted to scream, to cry, to do something other than watch humanity's end on a computer screen, but she forced herself to stay calm. Someone had to. "Continue the evacuation protocols," she ordered. "Every life we save matters." Back in space, Taiho made his decision. He couldn't win this battle. No one could. But he could make the Krillians remember Earth. He could make them pay a price for humanity's extinction. "All ships, this is Commander Taiho," he broadcast to his tiny fleet. "Form up on the Indomitable. We're going straight for their flagship." It was a suicide mission. Everyone knew it, but not one ship turned away. The 12 human vessels aligned themselves into an arrow formation, pointing directly at the massive Krillian command ship. Taiho saw the alien flagship on his main screen. It was 5 times bigger than his largest ship, covered in weapons and armor. Leading the charge against it was madness, but humans had always been a little mad. "Commander," Yuna said suddenly, "I'm detecting something strange. There's a new energy signature at the edge of the system." Taiho frowned. "More Krillians." "I don't think so. The signature is different. It's human." That was impossible. There were no human ships left except his small fleet. Everything else had been destroyed. Taiho pulled up the sensor data and stared at the screen. Yuna was right. A single ship had just appeared from faster-than-light travel. And according to the computer, it was definitely made by humans. The Krillian War Prime Vexthar noticed the newcomer too. From his command throne aboard the flagship, he looked at the lone human ship with contempt. One more vessel to destroy. It meant nothing. He had already won this war, but then the unknown ship opened fire. Beams of pure white energy lanced across space and struck 3 Krillian destroyers. The aliens' shields, which had withstood everything Earth threw at them, collapsed instantly. The destroyers exploded in brilliant flashes of light. Taiho's jaw dropped. His weapons couldn't even scratch those ships. This mysterious vessel had destroyed them in seconds. "Who is that?" Yuna whispered. As if in answer, a transmission came through on the emergency channel. A man's voice, speaking clear English with a calm confidence that seemed impossible given the situation. "This is Captain Junho of the Horizon's Dawn. We're here to even the odds." The unknown ship accelerated. toward the Krillian fleet with impossible speed. It moved like nothing Taiho had ever seen, dancing between enemy fire, its weapons cutting through alien ships like a hot knife through butter. Missiles launched from its hull and phased right through Krillian shields before exploding inside the enemy vessels. Energy beams bent in mid-flight to strike targets from unexpected angles. It was beautiful. It was terrifying. And it was human. War Prime Vexthar roared in fury. He ordered 100 ships to surround and destroy the impudent vessel. The Krillians abandoned their formation and swarmed toward the horizon's dawn like angry insects. That was exactly what Junho wanted. He led the alien fleet on a chase through Earth's orbital space, destroying ship after ship while taking hits that should have killed him. But somehow the horizon's dawn kept fighting. Its hull showed damage, but then the wounds seemed to heal themselves, metal flowing back into place like living tissue. All Earth ships, Taiho transmitted. Follow my lead. While they're distracted, we hit them from behind. For the first time in weeks, Commander Taiho smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. It was the smile of a man who had been given one more chance to fight. His 12 ships broke formation and struck at the confused Krillian fleet. The battle raged across Earth's orbit. Human ships that had been running and dying were now fighting back. The mysterious horizon's dawn continued its deadly dance, and wherever it went, Krillian ships died. On the surface, Dr. Hana watched the impossible scene on her monitors. The energy readings from the enemy flagship showed the planet killer weapon was no longer charging. The Krillians had stopped trying to destroy Earth. They were too busy trying to survive. "What's happening up there?" her assistant asked, hope creeping into his voice for the first time. Hana shook her head in amazement. "I don't know, but I think we might actually survive this." In the black of space, Captain Junho broadcast another message. This time it went to every ship in the system, both human and Krillian. "You picked the wrong species to hunt," he said. "Humanity doesn't give up. We don't surrender, and we sure as hell don't go extinct." The words echoed across the battlefield, and for the first time since the war began, Earth's defenders believed them. The Krillian fleet had stopped treating the lone ship as a minor threat. Now 60 enemy vessels surrounded the horizon's dawn, pouring fire into it from every angle. The mysterious ship's shields flared bright blue as they absorbed the punishment. Any normal human vessel would have been vaporized in seconds. But this ship just kept fighting. Commander Taiho watched from the Indomitable as the unknown vessel performed maneuvers that should have been impossible. It twisted through space like a dancer, its engines leaving strange ripples in the fabric of reality itself. Every few seconds it fired weapons that Taiho had never seen before. Gravity beams that crushed enemy ships from the inside. Missiles that appeared and disappeared, rematerializing inside Krillian hulls. Energy weapons that seemed to ignore the laws of physics entirely. "Get me a line to that ship," Taiho ordered. "I need to know what we're dealing with." Lieutenant Yuna worked her console quickly. "Channel open, Commander." "Captain Junho, this is Commander Taiho of the Earth Defense Fleet. We're grateful for your help, but I need to know who you are and where you came from." There was a pause. On the main screen, the horizon's dawn destroyed 2 more Krillian cruisers with contemptuous ease. Then Junho's voice came through, calm despite the chaos around him. "Commander, I promise we'll explain everything, but right now we need to focus on keeping Earth alive. We can talk after we win." Taiho wanted to argue, but he knew Junho was right. Questions could wait. Survival couldn't. "Understood. What do you need from us?" "Keep hitting their right flank. I'm going to draw their flagship away from the planet. If we can separate it from the fleet, we might be able to end this quickly." It was an insane plan. The Krillian flagship was the most heavily armed vessel in the system. But Taiho had already committed to insanity when he decided to charge it earlier. At least now he had an ally who seemed to know what they were doing. "Copy that. All Earth ships concentrate fire on the enemy's right flank. Make them hurt." The battle continued with renewed intensity. The 12 remaining Earth ships formed a tight formation and hammered at the Krillian right side. Their weapons were primitive compared to the horizon's dawn, but quantity had its own quality. Missiles and railgun rounds filled space, forcing the aliens to split their attention. Yuna studied her sensor data while coordinating the attack. Something about the mysterious ship bothered her. The energy signature, the hull design, even the communication frequencies it used. Everything felt familiar but wrong, like a song she knew but played in the wrong key. Then she saw it. Hidden under layers of advanced technology and strange modifications was something she recognized. A hull registration number, faint and old, barely visible through all the upgrades. Her blood turned to ice. "Commander," she said quietly, "I know what that ship is." Tejo glanced at her. "What do you mean?" "The Horizon's Dawn. Its core structure matches the UES Horizon. That was a colony ship that left Earth 150 years ago. It was supposed to be humanity's first attempt at settling another star system." She pulled up historical records on her screen. The ship vanished shortly after leaving the solar system. Everyone aboard was declared dead. Tejo stared at the unknown vessel with new understanding. That's impossible. Even if they survived, how could they have developed this kind of technology? "I don't know. But that ship is definitely built around the Horizon's original frame. I'd stake my career on it. A ghost ship returned from the dead with weapons and technology far beyond anything Earth possessed." Tejo didn't know whether to feel hope or fear. Maybe both. On the Krillian flagship, War Prime Vexthar was learning what it meant to be frustrated. For 6 months he had crushed human resistance with ease. Their ships were slow. Their weapons were weak. Their tactics were predictable. Conquering Earth was supposed to be simple, but this new ship changed everything. It moved like a Krillian vessel but fought with techniques he had never seen. Worse, it was clearly human in design. That meant the prey species was more dangerous than intelligence reports suggested. That was unacceptable. "All ships concentrate fire on the unknown vessel," Vexthar commanded. "I want it destroyed. Now." 100 Krillian warships changed course, converging on the Horizon's Dawn from all directions. The amount of firepower being directed at a single target could have destroyed a moon. Energy beams, plasma torpedoes, kinetic missiles, everything the Krillian Empire had developed over centuries of conquest, all focused on one human ship. The Horizon's Dawn took the punishment like a champion boxer taking punches. Its shields blazed white-hot, then blue, then started to crack. Hull plating buckled and tore. For a moment it looked like the ship might finally fall. Then something amazing happened. The damage started to repair itself. Metal flowed like liquid, filling holes and sealing breaches. The shields recharged with impossible speed. Within seconds, the Horizon's Dawn looked almost pristine again. "What kind of technology is that?" Yuna breathed. Tejo had no answer. He just watched as the ghost ship from Earth's past taught the Krillian Empire that humanity was full of surprises. Junho's voice came over the command channel again. "Commander Tejo, I'm going to need your ships to fall back. Things are about to get dangerous." "More dangerous than this?" Tejo asked. "Much more. Trust me." Against his better judgment, Tejo ordered his ships to retreat to a safer distance. The Horizon's Dawn was now alone against the entire Krillian fleet, but Junho didn't seem concerned. Instead, the ship stopped moving. It just hung in space, weapons powered down, as if waiting for something. The Krillians saw their chance. Every ship in range opened fire simultaneously. It was enough energy to destroy a small planet. But just before the weapons hit, the Horizon's Dawn vanished. Not destroyed, vanished. One moment it was there, the next it was gone, leaving only empty space where it had been. Then it reappeared behind the Krillian formation and fired a single devastating shot. The weapon looked like a miniature black hole, a sphere of darkness that expanded as it flew. It struck the nearest Krillian battleship, and the entire vessel simply ceased to exist, consumed by whatever impossible physics Junho had unleashed. "That's a warning shot," Junho broadcast to the Krillian fleet. "The next one goes through your flagship. War Prime Vexthar, I'm giving you one chance. Withdraw your forces and leave this system. Refuse, and I'll dismantle your fleet piece by piece." Tejo held his breath. Would the aliens actually retreat? For a long moment, nothing happened. Then Vexthar's response came, his voice full of rage and hatred. "Humans do not give warnings to the Krillian Empire. You will die like all the others." Junho sighed, and Tejo could hear genuine sadness in his voice. "I was afraid you'd say that. I really hoped we could avoid more bloodshed. But if you insist on learning the hard way, so be it." The Horizon's Dawn accelerated toward the Krillian flagship, and the battle entered a new phase. It was no longer about survival. Now it was about teaching the invaders a lesson they would never forget. Earth had been pushed to the edge of extinction, but extinction had pushed back, and it had teeth. The Krillian fleet was in chaos. Ships collided with each other, trying to track the horizon's dawn as it moved through their formation like a ghost. War Prime Vexthar had finally ordered a retreat to regroup. The massive alien warships pulled back toward the outer system, and for the first time in months, Earth's orbit was clear of enemies. Commander Taiho couldn't quite believe it. They had won. Not permanently, he knew that. The Krillians would be back with reinforcements. But for now, Earth was safe, and it was all because of one mysterious ship that had appeared from nowhere. Captain Junho, this is Commander Taiho. We're bringing the Horizon's Dawn into Station Omega for repairs and resupply, and I think it's time you told us your story. Agreed, Junho replied. I'm sending you docking coordinates now. Fair warning, Commander. What I'm about to tell you is going to sound impossible. 30 minutes later, Taiho stood in the docking bay of Station Omega, watching the Horizon's Dawn settle into place. Up close, the ship was even more impressive. Its hull was made of materials he didn't recognize, covered in patterns that seemed to shift and flow like living things. The engines were silent, but somehow Taiho could feel their power, a deep vibration that resonated in his bones. The airlock opened and 3 people walked out. The first was a man in his 50s with gray in his hair and tired eyes that had seen too much. He wore a uniform that was recognizably human, but designed in a style Taiho had never seen. Behind him came a woman about 40 years old carrying a data pad, and a younger man who moved like a soldier. Commander Taiho, the older man said, extending his hand. I'm Captain Junho. This is my chief engineer Nari and my first officer Do-hyun. Taiho shook hands with each of them, noting the firm grips and calloused hands. These were people who worked for a living, not politicians or bureaucrats. He liked them already. Let's talk somewhere private, Taiho said. They gathered in Station Omega's command center, along with Lieutenant Yuna and Dr. Hana, who had been brought up from the surface. Junho sat down and began his story. 150 years ago, the UES Horizon left Earth carrying 10,000 colonists. The mission was to reach a star system 30 light-years away and establish humanity's first extrasolar colony. For the first few months, everything went according to plan. Then we found something. He paused, choosing his words carefully. There was a planet in our target system. We named it New Haven, but it wasn't empty. There were ruins there, massive structures that had been abandoned for thousands of years. We had discovered the remains of an ancient civilization. Nari pulled up images on her datapad and projected them into the air. Taiho stared at impossible architecture, buildings that seemed to defy gravity, machines that looked like sculptures. It was beautiful and alien and completely unlike anything humans had ever built. We called them the architects, Junho continued. We don't know what they looked like or where they went, but they left behind technology that was like magic to us, machines that could manipulate gravity, energy sources that tapped into the fabric of space itself, medical devices that could heal almost any injury. For 150 years, we studied their ruins. We learned, we built. The colony grew and advanced far beyond Earth's level. We developed faster ships, better weapons, technology that your scientists would think was impossible. Yuna leaned forward. Why didn't you contact Earth? Why did you let everyone think you were dead? Yuno's face darkened. Because of what else we found in the ruins. Records. Warnings. The architects had been hunted and destroyed by a parasitic empire that travels the galaxy, looking for new species to conquer. An empire that destroys any civilization that might become a threat. The Krillians, Taiho said quietly. Yes. The architects' logs described them perfectly. We realized that if the Krillians knew about New Haven or about Earth, they would come for us. So we stayed hidden. We maintained radio silence. We watched the galaxy from the shadows and hoped that somehow we could stay off their radar. Dr. Hana spoke up, her voice angry. But they found Earth anyway. And you did nothing. You could have warned us. You could have helped us prepare. We debated that for decades, Do-hyun said. But any transmission we sent could have been intercepted. Any visit could have led the Krillians straight to New Haven. We thought we were protecting both our worlds by staying hidden. We were wrong, Junho admitted. 6 months ago, we detected the Krillian fleet entering your solar system. The Colony Council argued about what to do. My daughter, Minji, she's on the council. She said we should stay hidden, that revealing ourselves would doom both New Haven and Earth. He stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the damaged Earth ships floating in the docking bays. But I couldn't do it. I couldn't sit in safety while my homeworld burned, so I took this ship, the fastest one we had, and came back. There were others who felt the same way. We left without permission, knowing we might never be allowed to return home. The room was quiet for a long moment. Taiho understood the sacrifice Junho had made. He had abandoned his home, his family, maybe his entire life, to save a planet he hadn't seen in over a century. How many more ships do you have? Taiho asked. On New Haven? 15 warships, all built with architect technology. They're heading here now, but it will take them weeks to arrive. We were closest, so we came ahead. Junho turned back to face the group. But there's a problem. The Krillians don't give up. War Prime Vexthar has already called for reinforcements. They'll arrive in a few days with fresh ships and more firepower. So we have days to prepare for another battle, Yuna said. What can we do in that time? Nari smiled for the first time. We can teach you. The architect technology isn't just weapons. It's manufacturing, energy production, shipbuilding. Give me access to your factories and engineers, and I can help you start upgrading your defenses. Dr. Hana was already thinking ahead. What about your ship? Can we study it? Learn how it works? That's why we're here, Junho said. We're going to share everything we know. No more secrets, no more hiding. New Haven and Earth, we're the same people. It's time we acted like it. Over the next several hours, Nari worked with Dr. Hana and Earth's top scientists, explaining the basics of architect technology. It was overwhelming. Just one of their energy reactors could power an entire city. Their gravity manipulators could move planets. Their medical technology could extend human life by decades, maybe centuries. But there was no time to implement most of it. They needed weapons, and they needed them fast. We can't build new ships in a few days, Nari explained. But we can upgrade your existing vessels. Add shield generators, improve your weapons, install better engines. It won't make them as good as the Horizon's Dawn, but it will give you a fighting chance. Meanwhile, Do-hyun was training Earth pilots to fly the architect tech fighters that the Horizon's Dawn carried. These small craft were fast and deadly, capable of taking on ships 10 times their size. There were only 20 of them, but in skilled hands they could change the course of a battle. Taiho pulled Junho aside privately. Even with all this, we're still outnumbered. When the Krillian reinforcements arrive, they'll hit us with everything they have. How do we beat an entire empire? Unyo met his eyes. We don't, not yet. But we can make them regret coming here. We can hit them so hard that they think twice before attacking another human world. And we can buy time for New Haven's fleet to arrive. How? We take the fight to them, Junho said. We don't wait for them to attack Earth again. We strike first, hit their command ship, and take down their leadership. The Krillian military doctrine requires them to retreat and regroup if they lose their war prime. If we can kill Vexthar, his fleet will withdraw. It was a desperate plan. Insane, even. But Taiho was getting used to insanity. When do we leave? Tomorrow. We'll have one shot at this. If we fail, Earth is finished. Taiho nodded slowly. One shot. That was all humanity ever seemed to get. But so far, they had made each shot count. The preparation happened faster than anyone thought possible. Earth's engineers worked through the night, installing architect technology onto the surviving defense ships. It was crude work, like attaching jet engines to old sailing vessels, but it would have to do. Every ship received upgraded shields and improved weapons. The Indomitable got special attention, with Nari personally overseeing the installation of a gravity pulse cannon. Lieutenant Yuna barely slept. She spent hours learning the systems of the architect tech fighters, practicing maneuvers in simulators that Do-hyun set up. The small craft responded to thoughts as much as controls, reading the pilot's intentions through neural interfaces. It was strange and wonderful and terrifying all at once. Dr. Hana focused on something else entirely. While others prepared for battle, she worked with Nari on a secret weapon. Using architect technology, they were building a massive disruption device that could jam Krillian communications across an entire fleet. The theory was sound, but it had never been tested on this scale. If it worked, the organized Krillian formation would dissolve into chaos. If it failed, they would have wasted precious resources on nothing. The calculations show it should work, Nari said, double-checking her numbers for the 100th time. But there's no way to be sure until we try it in actual combat. Then we better make sure it counts, Hana replied. She was exhausted, running on coffee and determination, but she refused to rest. Too much depended on getting this right. 20 hours after the Horizon's Dawn docked at Station Omega, the strike force was ready. It consisted of the Horizon's Dawn, the upgraded Indomitable, 5 other Earth vessels, and 20 Architect tech fighters. Against the Krillian reinforcement fleet that was approaching, it was woefully inadequate. But it was all they had. Commander Taiho stood on the bridge of the Indomitable looking at his crew. They were tired, scared, and probably going to die. But they were still here, still fighting. That was the thing about humans that the Krillians didn't understand. Humanity's greatest strength wasn't their weapons or technology. It was their stubborn refusal to quit, even when quitting made logical sense. All ships, this is Commander Taiho. He broadcast to the strike force. You all know the mission. We're going to jump directly into the Krillian fleet, activate the disruption field, and fight our way to their command ship. Captain Junho will lead a boarding party onto the War Prime's vessel, while we keep the rest of the fleet busy. He paused, searching for the right words. I won't lie to you. This is probably a one-way trip, but if we succeed, we save Earth. We save everyone we've ever loved, and we prove to the galaxy that humanity is not prey. We are survivors. We are warriors, and we do not go gentle into that good night. The response came from every ship simultaneously. No words, just a simple acknowledgement. They understood. They accepted. They were ready. The fleet jumped to faster-than-light travel, leaving Station Omega behind. The jump would take 30 minutes to prepare for the most important battle in human history. Junho checked his combat gear one last time. Beside him, Do-Hyun and 20 volunteers from both New Haven and Earth prepared their weapons. They would be the boarding party, the ones who had to fight their way through an alien warship and kill War Prime Vexthar in person. It was a brutal mission and not everyone would survive it. Captain, Do-Hyun said quietly, what do we do if the disruption field doesn't work? Then we improvise, Junho replied. Same as always. The fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel directly in the middle of the Krillian formation. Alarms screamed as both sides registered the sudden appearance. The Krillians had 200 ships, fresh reinforcements that had been heading toward Earth. Now they found themselves with human vessels appearing among them, like wolves in a sheep pen. Activate the disruption field, Taiho commanded. Dr. Hana, stationed on the Indomitable, activated the device. A pulse of energy exploded outward from the human ships, invisible but devastating to electronic systems. The Krillian communications network died instantly. Ships that had been coordinating perfectly suddenly found themselves isolated, unable to talk to their neighbors or receive orders from their command. The organized fleet dissolved into confusion. Some ships tried to attack the humans. Others fired on each other by mistake. A few tried to retreat but collided with allies who hadn't received the withdrawal order. It was exactly the chaos Hana had hoped for. All ships attack, Taiho ordered. The human fleet struck like a hammer. The upgraded Earth vessels, while still primitive compared to Krillian technology, now had weapons that could punch through alien shields. The Horizon's Dawn led the charge, its advanced weapons tearing apart enemy ships with ruthless efficiency, and the Architect tech fighters, piloted by Yuna and 19 other volunteers, danced between the larger vessels like angry wasps, targeting engines and weapons systems. War Prime Vexthar watched his fleet fall apart from his command throne. How had this happened? The humans were supposed to be weak, helpless, easy prey. Instead, they had struck first, disrupted his forces, and were now fighting with technology that rivaled his own. It was humiliating. It was infuriating. All ships destroy the humans, he roared, but his words went nowhere. The communication system was dead. He was shouting into silence. The Horizon's Dawn punched through the Krillian formation and came alongside Vexthar's massive dreadnought. Junyo and his boarding party stood ready at the airlock. The ship's Architect technology included a teleportation system, something that could move people through solid matter. It was dangerous and unreliable, but it would get them inside the enemy vessel. Ready? Junyo asked his team. They nodded. No fear showed on their faces, only determination. Then let's go teach these invaders what happens when they attack Earth. The teleportation system activated. For a moment, Junho felt like he was being torn apart and rebuilt atom by atom. Then he was standing in a dark corridor inside the Krillian dreadnought, surrounded by his team. Alarms blared around them. The enemy knew they were here. Move fast, stay together, Junho ordered. They ran through the corridors, heading for the command deck. Krillian soldiers appeared, Massive creatures in heavy armor carrying weapons designed to kill humans easily. But Junho's team had trained for this. They fought with precision and desperation, using every trick they knew. Do-hyun took point, his architect tech rifle firing rounds that ignored armor and struck the aliens' vital organs directly. Behind him, the Earth volunteers provided covering fire. They lost 2 people in the first corridor, 3 more at the second junction, but they kept moving forward, driven by the knowledge that Earth's survival depended on them. Outside, the battle raged. Yuna flew her fighter through impossible maneuvers, drawing fire away from larger ships. She had lost count of how many enemy vessels she had damaged. Her fighter was running on emergency power. Shields were failing and her left engine was making a worrying grinding sound. But she kept fighting. Taeho coordinated the attack from the Indomitable, using the chaos created by the disruption field to maximum advantage. The Krillians couldn't organize a proper defense. Every time they started to regroup, the humans would strike from an unexpected angle, keeping them off balance. But slowly, the tide was turning. The Krillians had more ships, more firepower, more resources. The disruption field couldn't last forever. Eventually, their communications would be restored, and when that happened, the organized Krillian fleet would crush the small human force. Everything depended on Yunho reaching Vexthar in time. The boarding party fought their way onto the command deck. Alien soldiers fell before them, but so did more humans. By the time they reached the massive doors to the command chamber, only Junho, Do-hyun, and 5 others remained. They had started with 22. Junho placed charges on the door and blew it open. Inside, War Prime Vexthar waited on his throne, surrounded by his personal guards. The alien leader was massive, easily 9 feet tall, covered in augmented armor that made him look like a walking tank. So the prey has teeth after all, Vexthar said in perfect English. It matters not. You are still prey, and prey always dies. He stood up from his throne and his guards opened fire. The command chamber became a battlefield. The command chamber became a storm of weapons, fire, and death. Vexthar's guards were the best soldiers the Krillian Empire had, enhanced with technology and training that made them nearly unstoppable. They cut down 3 of Junho's team in the first seconds. The remaining humans dove for cover behind command consoles, returning fire desperately. Do-hyun took a hit to his shoulder, but kept fighting, gritting his teeth against the pain. We need to take down those guards before we can reach Vexthar. Junho nodded and pulled out a small device from his belt, a gift from Nari. It was an architect gravity bomb, unstable and dangerous. He set the timer for 3 seconds and threw it toward the guards. The device landed among them and activated, creating a localized gravity well. The Krillian soldiers were crushed instantly, their armor crumpling like tin cans under the impossible pressure. War Prime Vexthar roared in fury. He charged at Junho with shocking speed for something so large. His massive fist came down like a hammer. Junho barely rolled aside in time, feeling the impact as the metal floor buckled where he had been standing. You think your ancient toys make you strong? Vexthar snarled. He grabbed a beam from the damaged wall and swung it at Junho like a club. I have conquered 40 worlds. I have destroyed hundreds of species. You are nothing. Junho fired his rifle, but Vexthar's personal shields absorbed the shots. The War Prime was too well protected for conventional weapons. This fight would have to be won the hard way, up close and personal. Junho drew his combat knife, a blade made from architect materials that could cut through almost anything. You're right, Junho said calmly, circling the massive alien. I'm nothing special. I'm just a human who's tired of watching bullies hurt innocent people. He darted forward with speed that surprised Vexthar. The knife slashed across the War Prime's armor, leaving a deep gouge. The alien's shields could stop energy weapons, but they did nothing against physical attacks. Vexthar swung at him again, but Junho was already moving, striking and retreating like a mongoose fighting a cobra. Outside the dreadnought, the space battle was reaching its critical point. The disruption field was failing. Krillian communications were starting to come back online, ship by ship. The alien fleet was beginning to coordinate again. Commander Taeho saw the danger immediately. All ships, we need to finish this now. Focus everything on their flagship. The Earth vessels turned their weapons on Vexthar's dreadnought, hammering at its shields. The Horizon's Dawn added its incredible firepower to the assault. Slowly, the massive ship's defenses began to crack. Lieutenant Yuna led the fighter squadron in one final attack run. Half the fighters had been destroyed and her own craft was barely holding together. She armed her last missile and targeted the dreadnought's main reactor. The shot had to be perfect, threading through defensive fire and damaged shields to hit a target the size of a car from miles away. She thought about Earth, about the millions of people depending on her. She thought about her family and soul, hiding in shelters, waiting to learn if they would live or die. She steadied her breathing, lined up the shot, and fired. The missile flew true. It slipped through a gap in the shields and struck the reactor containment. Alarms blared throughout the Krillian dreadnought as radiation warnings filled every screen. Inside the command chamber, Junho and Vexthar continued their brutal fight. The War Prime was stronger, but Junho was faster and more experienced. Every time the alien tried to land a devastating blow, Junho turned it aside and struck back. The architect knife left dozens of cuts across Vexthar's armor, each one deeper than the last. How? Vexthar demanded, breathing heavily. How can you fight like this? You are prey. Junho's response was cold. That's your problem. You see every other species as prey. You never considered that maybe, just maybe, we're the predators and you walked into our hunting ground. He drove the knife deep into a gap in Vexthar's armor, piercing through to the alien's vital organs. The War Prime staggered backward, disbelief in his eyes. He was the strongest warrior in the Krillian Empire. He had never lost a battle. This was impossible. Junho twisted the knife and pulled it free. This is for everyone you murdered. This is for every world you destroyed. And this is for Earth. War Prime Vexthar fell to his knees, then collapsed forward. The mighty conqueror was dead, killed by a human in single combat. Dohyun stumbled over, clutching his wounded shoulder. We need to go. The reactor is critical. This ship is going to explode. The few remaining members of the boarding party ran back to their extraction point. The Horizon's Dawn extended its teleportation field and pulled them out, just as the dreadnought's reactor went into meltdown. The massive ship exploded in a ball of white fire, the blast taking out several nearby Krillian vessels. The alien fleet, now able to communicate again, saw their War Prime's ship destroyed. According to Krillian military law, they had no choice. Without their War Prime, they could not continue offensive operations. They had to retreat and wait for a new commander to be appointed. One by one, the Krillian ships broke off their attacks and jumped to faster-than-light travel. Within minutes, Earth's orbit was clear. The invaders were gone. On the bridge of the Indomitable, Commander Tejo couldn't quite believe it. They had won. Not just survived, but actually won. He looked at the faces of his crew, seeing relief and disbelief mirrored on every face. Someone get me Captain Junho, he said quietly. Junho's face appeared on the main screen, looking exhausted but alive. Commander, we did it. Yes, we did. Get back to Station Omega. I think Earth owes you a drink. The victory celebrations lasted for days. The people who had been hiding in shelters emerged to find their world still existed. Earth's governments held emergency sessions to process what had happened. The existence of New Haven and architect technology changed everything humanity thought they knew about their place in the galaxy. Dr. Hana threw herself into studying the new technology with renewed energy. The possibilities were endless. With architect manufacturing techniques, they could rebuild everything the Krillians had destroyed in months instead of years. The energy technology alone could solve Earth's power needs forever. And the medical advances could end diseases that had plagued humanity for centuries. Lieutenant Yuna received a promotion to captain and was given command of a new vessel being built with combined Earth and New Haven technology. She would lead the training program for pilots learning to fly architect tech fighters. The 20 fighters had proven their worth in battle. Earth would need hundreds more. 15 ships from New Haven arrived 2 weeks after the battle. It was an emotional reunion as the two branches of humanity met again after 150 years of separation. There were tears, celebrations, and long discussions about how to move forward together. Junho stood with Commander Taiho, now Admiral Taiho, watching the New Haven fleet dock at the newly expanded Station Omega. What happens now? Taiho asked. Now we build, Junho replied. We share everything we know. We make both worlds stronger. Because the Krillians will come back and next time they'll bring more ships. Let them come, Taiho said with a slight smile. Humanity isn't alone anymore. We have allies now. We have technology. We have hope. Junho thought about his daughter Minji on New Haven. She had sent him a message after the battle telling him she was proud of what he'd done. The Colony Council had voted to fully integrate with Earth, ending their isolation. No more hiding. No more watching from the shadows. There's something else, Junho said. The architect ruins on New Haven aren't the only ones. Their records show dozens of other sites scattered across the galaxy. Other species they tried to uplift. Other worlds where they left their technology. If we can find those sites, study them, learn from them, we could become something the Krillians have never seen before. Taiho finished. A species that fights back. That doesn't just survive, but thrives. They stood in comfortable silence, watching Earth's orbital space fill with construction drones and new ships. The scars of war were still visible, but they were healing. Humanity was healing. On Earth's surface, people looked up at the stars with different eyes now. The darkness that had seemed so threatening during the invasion now represented possibility. There were other worlds out there, other colonies to build, other species to meet. Some would be friends, some would be enemies. But humanity would face them together, united, strong, and unwilling to ever be victims again. The unknown ship had joined the battle and saved Earth. But more than that, it had reminded humanity of who they were and what they could become. Not prey, not victims, but survivors who would stand up to any threat, no matter how impossible it seemed. In the rebuilt Sol Command Center, Dr. Hana looked at the stars and smiled. Her children would grow up in a world that reached for the stars instead of cowering beneath them. That alone made all the struggle worth it. Somewhere in deep space, what remained of the Krillian fleet retreated to their empire. They would send reports. They would warn their leaders. Humanity was no longer easy prey. They had technology now. They had allies. They had proven they could fight and win. The next invasion would be much harder. But humanity would be ready, because that's what humans did. They adapted. They learned.